Throughout our adventures in Valiant Hearts, we encountered many things. There were fun moments that brought a smile on our faces. But for each fun moment, there were dozens of horrible experiences. Families torn apart. Thousands killed. Villages completely destroyed. And even gas attacks.
But that's a video game, right? Those things could never have happened in real life. If you take a look at Ypres now, the city we both live in, it doesn't look anything like in Valiant Hearts. But it did happen, just 100 years ago, and we want to show that after all those years, it's still not forgotten and it never will be.
Let's sum up some of the key moments in the game. Emil's first battle, the Battle of Marne. He's wounded in the first minutes and captured by the German Empire. He is considered lucky. Over 2 million men fought in this battle, 500,000 were injured or killed. To talk numbers, that's over 14 times the current population of Ypres dead or wounded.
Emil and Freddy arrive at Ypres during the first gas attack. They blow up the gas machine and manage to escape thanks to Anna. On April the 22nd, after a day of being shelled by Big Berthas, Allied forces witnessed a big cloud moving on the ground towards their trenches. The cloud turns out to be chlorine gas, which affects the mucous membranes. This includes the airways and eyes. When exposed for too long, the person would die of suffocation because his lungs and airways would swell up. Because chlorine gas is heavier than air, it stayed close to the ground and crawled into the trenches. This took most soldiers by surprise. With no official numbers, it is known that 12,000 French soldiers died a horrible, slow and agonizing death. In October 1918, Hitler was wounded by a gas attack, which resulted in him recovering in a military hospital until the end of the war.
Throughout the story, Emil and Freddy chase the Baron down to Reims. The city gets bombarded by the Baron's Zeppelin and the cathedral takes a heavy beating. German bombardments and the big fire in 1914 destroyed most of the town and dealt severe damage to the cathedral. Together with pictures of the ruined cloth hall in Ypres and University Library in Louvain, the cathedral became one of the central images of anti-German propaganda during World War I. It was clear that the German aggression targeted cultural landmarks of the European civilization. In total, both sides combined lost over 300,000 men.
On May 8, 1916, Emil and Freddy's squad received orders to take back Fort Douaumont at Verdun, an important strategic position. The assault was considered a success, even though the fort blew up with Freddy inside. In reality, there wasn't an assault on the 8th of May. Some German soldiers occupying the fort tried to heat coffee using fuel from flamethrowers. The fuel was too flammable and spread to nearby shells. A firestorm ripped through the fort, killing hundreds. Soldiers who tried to escape the inferno were mistaken for French forces and got shot by their comrades. In total, 679 German soldiers died in the fire. Their bodies were gathered inside the fort and walled off permanently. To this day, this wall is considered an official German war grave. It took the French another 6 months, millions of small caliber shells and tens of thousands of casualties to recapture the fort.
Being sick and still mourning the death of Karl, Emil is forced to take part in another assault, the Nivelle offensive. In the background we see allies being slaughtered by machine gun fire. It ends with Emil accidentally starting a mutiny by killing his commanding officer, followed by being court-martialed. The main goal of the Nivelle offensive was to break German defenses on the river Aisne within 48 hours, with casualties expected to be around 10,000 men. After the offensive was dismissed, the French forces suffered 187,000 casualties, including 29,000 killed and 4,000 captured. From the 128 tanks that took part in the offensive, 118 were destroyed. The German Empire suffered 163,000 casualties and 15,000 to 20,000 prisoners.
To summarize the First World War, it began on the 28th of July 1914 and lasted until the 11th of November 1918. The German Empire had support from Austria-Hungary, the Ottoman Empire and Bulgaria to achieve a combined army of 25,250,000 men.
In comparison, 11 countries fought on the Allied side: Russia, Great Britain, France, Italy, United States, Romania, Japan, Serbia, Belgium, Greece and Montenegro. Together they had a combined army of almost 43 million men. Allied and Axis figures together, nearly 10 million soldiers died, 21 million soldiers were wounded, 7 million of those were permanently disabled, and 7,750,000 soldiers missing. Total military count: 38,880,500 killed, wounded or missing in action.
If you add 7 million civilian casualties to that, you get a whopping 45,880,500 deaths. Casualties or missing people. That's almost as much as London, New York and Beijing combined.
Those events are 100 years in the past now, but that doesn't mean they are just forgotten. If you explore Ypres on foot, you can find war monuments everywhere. Flanders Fields Museum, and lots of military cemeteries.
Take a bike ride and you will find even more memorabilia of the Great War. The Caterpillar. Dozens of tunnels were dug under the trenches and outposts, only to collect a humongous amount of explosives under the enemy lines. Some explosions were even heard and felt in London, 262 kilometers away.
Hill 60, a small preserved landscape left completely intact since the Great War. You can explore this closed off area and clearly see where the shells hit. There's also a monument and bunker present, which are well-known spots for Australian tourists.
Hundreds of military cemeteries, some small and secluded, others large and easily accessible. Each cemetery has a register. Everyone who feels like it can write a comment there, from relatives of fallen soldiers to tourists with a passion for the Great War. Should you have the chance, sit down and read some of the comments. There are some amazing stories written there.
Drive for a good 15 to 20 minutes in your car from the city center and there's still more to explore. Bayernwald. German trenches left at their original position with some restorations during these 100 years. You can walk in this little maze of trenches without any problem. Just keep in mind that in the war it was filled with mud, blood, and for the Allies in the worst cases, gas. There are also some little bunkers left. These were purposely very small and uncomfortable, so the soldiers would be motivated to advance as quickly as possible and leave those bunkers behind.
Tynecott, the biggest military cemetery in Flanders. The cemetery is located on the exact spot where the Battle of Passchendaele took place. All of the buried Allied casualties from this battle actually rest in peace on the battlefield they were fighting for. Really not much else to say about this. It just hits you in the face to see so many war graves all together. There are 11,500 Allied graves present here. That's 0.2% of all Allied deaths.
Langemark German War Cemetery. This is a German cemetery where 44,000 soldiers are buried, most of them in the mass grave near the entrance. This number includes 3,000 graves from school students who fought in the Battle of Langemark. During the Second World War, Hitler visited the spot to honor his fallen comrades.
But for one of the most iconic symbols of the Great War and Ypres, we must go back to the city centre. The Meningate Memorial is dedicated to British and Commonwealth soldiers whose graves are unknown. The walls have the names of 54,896 missing men.
To this day, remains of missing soldiers are found during building works, road mending activities, or farmers plowing their land. These remains receive a proper burial in one of the war cemeteries. Names can be removed from the Meningate if they are identified.
To express the gratitude towards those who lost their lives for Belgium's freedom, every night at 8 o'clock buglers from the local fire brigade sound the last post. This tradition has been carried out since the 2nd of July 1928 uninterruptedly, except for the occupation by the Germans in World War II. Throughout the years, the Last Post Association took over this task.
So it's clear that the Great War still has a big impact on our lives here. Our goal was to show you all that experiencing World War I in Valiant Hearts was a pretty fun and emotional experience, but that the reality was nothing like it.
We hope we gave you better insight into these events and that you now share the same amount of respect we have. We've put a lot of work in this video, so be sure to leave some feedback. We're very interested in all your opinions.
This was Two Responsible Gamers. I'm Peter.
I'm Niels, thank you for liking and subscribing, and have a nice day.